Welcome back to the 504 Core Podcast, episode 100. How you feeling, Zach? 100th guest, or not 100th guest, 100th episode.
That's
How you feel
crazy,
about
to
that?
be honest, that you're up to 100 on this, dude. That's a
Yeah, it's
testament
just
to your work, baby. So I'm
t-
excited to talk some LSU ball. Busy time right now, and honored to be here for the 100th episode.
testament to my shit talking skills. Yeah, if you're still listening, and I appreciate you guys. But yeah, little LSU today. We haven't had you on a little bit. Do a little catch up. LSU Baseball is on a roll. They look like a top notch team. One of the things I have in the notes, I said pre-SEC play. They lost one game, but they look pretty good. What are your thoughts on the games before they enter the Mizzou series?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a team, obviously, taking into account the Missouri series, riding a 15-game win streak. I mean, this is a program that is just absolutely cooking right now, and Jay Johnson's finally starting to find that ideal lineup. And it's funny to say starting to find that, considering they're riding a 15-game win streak, but they're starting to put some runs on the board in a big, big way. I mean, they put on over 160 runs throughout this 15-game win streak. So it's ridiculous what this program is doing. And I can't really find any negatives with this team. I mean, the bullpens look sensational with Zach Cowan at the helm, Case and Evans. Your weekend rotation looks the part. Your midweek starter and Connor Ware has looked fantastic as well. You're probably going to not use William Schmidt anymore midweek, like Jay Johnson alluded to. So there's not many negatives to take from this team. And then you get into SEC play, and they carry their momentum right there. I mean, they handled business in every single way. And despite the last game or the second game being relatively close, they left people on base. I mean, they had the opportunity to kind of take the top off and just couldn't. So this team is clicking on all cylinders, Mike. I can't even really think of anything negative when it comes to LSU baseball. Jay Johnson's got them right.
Yeah, I mean they have a ton of talent. We talked about it last podcast, and it really is kind of insane. I mean, one thing I've noticed, they only play Ashton Larson, and Larson was one of my favorite players last year. I mean, the dude had a great freshman campaign. I kind of hope he gets back in the swing of things, but there really isn't any room for error for a lot of these guys. You see a lot of turnover in the lineup. I guess Curiel is your leadoff hitter moving forward, right? I mean, you can't really move him
Yeah,
out of that spot.
you can't touch Curiel. This is a guy who I've had people ask me, I mean, is this the next Dylan Cruz? And they always talk about the initials DC and all this nonsense. Everybody likes to reach for all this stuff. But for me, I think Curiel is not even a rising star. I mean, he's a star right now. He's playing sensational in the leadoff spot for LSU as a true freshman. He's gotten on base in all 21, 22 games, however many it is. So it's hard to not sit back and think that, yeah, this guy's kind of got the juice. This is a guy who's living up to the hype. I mean, a top 10, top 15 player coming to LSU, bypassed the MLB draft. And a lot of people, including D1 Baseball, had him projected as the SEC Freshman of the Year. And here we are. I mean, he's lived up to that hype. So batting over 400, getting on base at a insane rate, like I said, every game to this point. So, yeah, Curiel's the real deal. He's living up to the hype and then some.
Yeah, he's first in the SEC in batting average. BBs, what is that?
Walks.
Okay, walks. He's first in walks with 23. He has 32 hits, which is also first, and he's second on base percentage of 598. So he's basically 600 just to get on base. So yeah, that's pretty insane for anyone, much less a freshman. And I think it said another stat. I think it said fifth in the NCAA and just batting average as a whole. So yeah, he's your leadoff hitter. You don't touch him. I guess they'll just rotate him between left and center, huh?
Yeah, they will. And they've got just so many people to work with. I think Stanfield's obviously your speedster out in center right now, and he's looked the part as well. So you've got your lineup kind of we talked about it kind of in the pregame before this and or the pregame show, whatever we want to call it, pre-show. And talking about the ideal lineup. And for me, your outfield seems like you've got a great rotation working with Jake Brown in right, Stanfield in center, and of course Derek Curiel in left. So they're working. They're handling business. They're getting it done at the plate. Defensively, they look great. It's hard for me to find any knocks on this team, and I sound like a homer, which is unfortunate. But I mean, I can't really think of anything negative about this program right now.
No, I mean it's factually correct. I mean they're a top 3 team in the nation. I haven't really focused on outside schools, but LSU is going to be there no matter what. I feel like so. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they keep moving forward with the lineups. I mean, it just seemed what do they got it locked into? Like Curiel, Milan, Dickinson, Jones, like those are your first 4 hitters, whatever rotation you want to put them in. But yeah, they're all pretty lethal. And after that, you got a bunch of guys that are just kind of vying for that position, whether it's Pearson, Brown, just a bunch of guys, Stanfield, Braswell. I don't know. I guess the one question mark with this team is who's your third baseman moving forward. There really isn't that guy emerging, in my opinion. But they do have good options between Reeves and Braswell. Who do you see being at the end of the year in that spot?
It's a good question because Reeves has obviously handled business when on the field, but you're coming off of a weekend where Braswell was sensational and a key component to the success of this team against Missouri. So you can't really go wrong. Reeves has showed some power at the plate. He's been consistent in the field. Braswell obviously isn't a heavy hitter, but he's getting on base at an efficient rate. Speaking in SEC play wise, obviously prior to that, it wasn't as good, but fast forward to SEC play and he looked the part there. So for me, you can't go wrong. Third base and catcher is the only spot where you're kind of like scratching your head to a certain degree.
Catcher, yeah.
It seems like Luis Hernandez is going to be your go-to guy at catcher in SEC play. And then third base, you can flip-flop Roswell and Reeves. I mean, it's a good problem to have. Too much talent is a good thing. So really excited about what they're doing right now. And Jay Johnson's starting to find that ideal lineup.
Yeah, for sure. I guess they'll just kind of bring Aaron Beatty in slowly, and then I don't know if Blaze Priester is going to continue getting any time. But yeah, one thing too I noticed about this team, they got a lot more speed this year. I feel like. I mean, Stanfield, Braswell, Dickinson's fairly fast. Curiel's pretty fast. I mean, they got some guys that can run. Jake Brown's got decent speed, so I feel like they got a little bit more speed this year and speed kills. So I feel like that might be something to kind of look out for as time goes. So I'm trying to think if there's anything. Oh, you want to touch on the Mizzou series real quick? Did you see anything in that series that you probably didn't see before SEC play?
Yeah, I think your bullpen is really starting to get into a groove. I think Zach Cowan is a fantastic reliever. You saw Connor Ware come out of the bullpen a little bit and pitch for this team. DJ Primo has been really good for them as well. Obviously, Kason Evans is your closer. I mean, he's a surefire weapon to come out of the bullpen. So you're getting those key pieces aside from your starters in Chase Shores, Ianson, and Cade Anderson. So it's a pleasant sight to see. For me, a major takeaway from the weekend would really just be your bullpen coming in and handling business when needed, when you might have gotten in a spot that you were uneasy in. The bullpen came in and kind of quote unquote saved the day. So I felt very comfortable with what they were providing this team.
Yeah, for sure. What's the latest with Gavin Guidry? Everyone on Twitter is saying all kind of nonsense. What's going on?
Yeah, it's a good question. He's dealing with a middle body injury, is how they're describing it, and it's day to day, every day. And Jay Johnson hasn't really kind of gone into deep detail about the injury. But he said the other day that in order for them to compete at the highest level, they'll need Guidry in the rotation, arguably your best reliever. So we'll see what happens in the future with him. But for now, it's still in the injury report. We'll see what happens tonight when they come up with that injury report, probably in the next 30, 45 minutes, and see if he's still listed on it. But I would assume that he would not be playing tonight. And that's being Tuesday, March 18th against UNO. So we'll see. But obviously, this is a guy who's a key piece to the rotation, and you want to get him back as soon as possible.
Yeah, what would you have, Evans and Guidry as your closers moving forward? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think if you can use both them as your closers, I think you're in a pretty damn good spot. Two sensational pitchers, and Kason Evans has lived up to the hype and then some, like I've said. So excited to see what happens, and you want to get Gavin Guidry back in the fold.
Do you feel like Shores has been, I wouldn't say disappointment, but not lived up to quite what he's supposed to be? I know he's coming back from a pretty major injury, but what's your take on Shores?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. You obviously could have had him in the mix as your Friday night starter during fall camp or fall ball into preseason practice in January. And it was always going to take some time for him to get back to that midseason form, right? That he's not Cade Anderson right now. He's not Ianson, who just had a 15 strikeout performance a couple of weeks ago. Those two guys are clicking on all cylinders. And then Chase Shores could be that quote unquote underperformer when you're comparing him to those other two pitchers. But I think the more innings, more reps he gets under his belt, I think the better he's going to be. I'm excited to see what happens there.
Yeah, it feels like there's no like real Paul Skeens on this team, but there's a bunch of like second guys that just are really, really good. I don't think there's any kind of dominant pitcher on this team, but Yeah, they got a lot more arms, that's for sure. And then the batting, they have too many guys to even play. So exciting times ahead. Have you done any research on Texas for this weekend? Or I know they have like one good freshman. I keep seeing that, but I don't really know much about them at all.
I don't know too much about them either. Obviously, a firepower SEC team, and we'll see how they compete. But it's SEC play now. Every weekend series is going to be a battle for this program, and you want to up the ante. You want to up the level of competition as you start to near postseason play in the coming weeks. So Texas will be a test, and then you keep moving on in SEC play. But hard to not be excited with what this team's done so far, and see if they can carry that momentum into this weekend in Austin.
Yeah, definitely exciting. Definitely exciting future, no doubt. Another exciting future is LSU football. I mean, yeah, take it in whatever direction you want to go there.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the midst of spring camp now. 6 practices down. They've given us a handful of media viewings to this point. It's been exciting to see these fresh faces, these newcomers on the team. A couple times you got to kind of sit back and look at the roster and be like, who the hell is that? Because there's so many newcomers on the field, probably closer to 30. So kind of just getting acclimated to the new team is what they've been doing through the first couple of practices, and now it's getting into the nitty gritty. Now you're nearing that 1/3 of the way through camp. You have 15 practices in total, 5 of them down. So they're getting into it now. Those position battles are brewing, and you're starting to see these newcomers start to cement themselves in the rotation and get on the depth chart in a big way. Brian Kelly likes to ease them into the mix. He's not normally going to throw a transfer with the first team off rip, but now you're starting to see guys like Tamarcus Cooley get in the first team with the safety room. Jack Pyburn start to make some first team reps at the edge slot. Patrick Payton as well. Mansoor Delane is starting to get some first team reps at cornerback. So defensively is where you're going to have a completely new look group for Blake Baker, and it's exciting to see. And then if you flip flop to the other side of the ball, the offensive line is where a majority of questions are going to be for me. They've moved around a lot of guys. They've done some shuffling there. You're bringing in Braylon Moore from Virginia Tech. Josh Thompson will be on campus in the coming days from Northwestern. So you're replacing 4 starters. It's going to be a tall task, but you're starting to see them start to find their groove with these newcomers. And that'll be one that goes all the way into fall camp until they find that fresh 5.
Yeah, I keep seeing, they're just moving guys everywhere. Yeah, as of March 18th, 3:50 p.m., what are you predicting their offensive line is, like the starting offensive line?
That's only tough just because Josh Thompson, the Northwestern transfer, hasn't made it to campus yet. Northwestern kind of works in quarters when it comes to their academic schedule. So he's finishing this quarter so he can get his degree, and then he'll be on campus in the next couple of days. But for me right now, I think you look at Tyree Adams as your left tackle. You look at Paul Mabenga as your left guard. Center will probably be more than likely Braylon Moore is who the one that you're kind of circling to be your starting center. You go to the right side and kind of that right guard spot could be Josh Thompson. They could put DJ Chester there and then slide Josh Thompson to tackle. He's a versatile piece at Northwestern. He's played guard and tackle and thrived at both. So for me, if I'm looking at kind of a way too early projection from left to right, it'd probably be Tyree Adams, Paul Mabenga, Braylon Moore, probably throw in DJ Chester at right guard, and then more than likely Josh Thompson. But you'll see some fluctuation. Weston Davis, the former 5-star, has been taking first team reps at right tackle right now, and he's handling business at times, but it's consistency that he's going to need to figure out before the season starts.
I mean, I keep hearing about Curious Kern and Solomon Thomas. You think they might get worked in? I wouldn't be surprised if they start at either guard or tackle. Either
Yeah, I
one
think
of those.
Carius Kern is an absolute freak of an athlete. I mean, this dude is a menace. Solomon Thomas today on Tuesday, day 6 of camp, he was on the sideline, not really working in too much. Don't know if it was an injury or disciplinary thing, but he was really on the side, kind of just going through a couple of the motions with the support staff. But kind of fast forward to get to Carius Kern, this is a guy who is unbelievable. I mean, I would not be surprised if he got some meaningful snaps this year. He comes in as a 5-star, the number 1 player in Arkansas, a player who has really put on some size since getting to campus. I mean, Mikey's sitting at 6'5", 335, and he just turned 18 years old. Like, this is a dude who's just a man child, and he looks the part. They flipped him over to left tackle for now. He's running with the 2s at left tackle. But if I'm Tyree Adams, who's been running with the first team at left tackle, I'm watching my back and kind of just like not moving skittish, but kind of looking around because I think Carius Kern could certainly come in the mix and really start to push Tyree Adams to get those first team reps, that starting spot at left tackle.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by that. Brad Davis has done an incredible job of recruiting. their offensive line is just ridiculous. I mean, they sounds like they're 8 guys deep across the board. So, yeah, pretty insane what they got. And then Brian Kelly, that was one of his 2 main things when he came here was offensive line and tight ends. So, I think they should be pretty good. I don't know if they'll be good as last year, but I mean, last year's team underperformed considering they couldn't run the ball. Were they trying to run the ball at practice?
That's pretty
Is that
much all they've been working on for the most part is run
yeah.
blocking schemes and getting acclimated to the run game. You bring back Caden Durham, obviously, who's a sensational piece, but you got to be able to block. You got to be able to block for him, and it's going to be an uphill climb trying to figure out your starting rotation. But I'm confident in what this team can do. You brought in Alex Atkins from Florida State, who's serving as your tight ends coach, but also your run game coordinator. This is a guy who's well versed. He was the offensive coordinator at Florida State. He's been around the block, and he's a seasoned vet, and it's been nothing but praise from the tight ends to other players, support staff, etc. Everybody's been really happy with that Alex Atkins hire. So the goal would be for him to continue to expand that rushing attack, and I think they can do that. I think you can't get much worse than last year. You struggled in a big way in the run game, but you get Caden Durham, who's now fully healthy, obviously was battling that foot injury in 2024. You have him fully healthy. You have Alex Atkins manning the run game. I think that this offense can be extremely balanced and dynamic in 2025.
Do you see Jackson getting playing time this year?
I do. I think Harlem Berry's obviously the truth. I mean, this is a guy who's a 5-star, number 1 running back in America for good reason. He looks the part out there, but physically he needs to put on a couple more pounds in order to be SEC game ready. So for me, I think Caden Durham is obviously your RB1. RB2 will be split between Harlem Berry and Caleb Jackson, but Caleb Jackson's certainly getting his fair share of reps right now. We'll see what happens during the spring portal window if he feels like he has an opportunity to play and remains with the program. But for now, he's getting those second snaps behind Caden Durham, and we'll see if it stays that way throughout the rest of camp.
I know you kind of reported it last year. You might have been the only one who reported it, but I know you're at the forefront of it. But about him just putting on a bunch of muscle and all that stuff. But then I heard a story this year. He's like leaner. Does he look leaner? I mean, does he look better physically? I mean, what do you see out of him?
I mean, for the most part, he's still a big body dude. I mean, he is a full 235 as he's listed on the roster. I mean, he looks big, but he's got to maintain some lean muscle mass too, and he's done that. He looks a little bit leaner, but it's gonna be an uphill climb for him. He needs to continue to improve on the vision and improve on a couple of different aspects of his game. But I believe in Caleb Jackson. Those freak athletes don't necessarily come around all the time. He is a specimen. He's fast. He's big. And it's just a matter of piecing it all together and becoming a more complete back for LSU moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. I believe in him too. I think, look at those freshman highlights and you'll be pretty amazed by what he did. What else is there to talk about? Oh, what about the starting secondary? I keep hearing DJ Pickett. Is that just like a lock for one of the corners to start?
No, I wouldn't say that for now. I think you have a competition brewing in the defensive backfield. You have Jakeem Jackson, the transfer from Florida, who's been getting some first team reps. I would pencil in Mansoor Delane as one of your starting corners. He's looked the part during camp, and he came here for a reason. I mean, this is a player who, if he doesn't start, I would be mind blown. He was on NFL draft boards, a guy who a ton of NFL personnel has raved about. So I put in Mansoor Delane as one of your cornerbacks. That other spot's going to be a battle between 3 guys of DJ Pickett, really Jakeem Jackson, and Ashton Stamps. I think those 3 are going to be battling down the stretch. I think DJ Pickett's got the juice. I mean, this is a guy who plays well above his years, 6'4", 180, just long, lanky, that prototypical Corey Raymond recruit, and he looks sensational. Jakeem Jackson's going to be pushing him for playing time, of course, as is Ashton Stamps, but you have an embarrassment of riches to work with in the cornerback room right now, and I'm going to be intrigued to watch how they kind of spread out these reps throughout the rest of camp, because you got a lot of guys that are competing for first team reps. And then the safety spot, Jordan Gilbert's out for spring camp. He underwent some surgery on that shoulder injury he suffered last year. So it's a small group right now from a body standpoint in the safety room. Tamarcus Cooley and Javian Toviano have been getting a lot of first team reps, but Deshaun Spears also got some first team reps alongside Cooley today as well. So you got a lot of things to work out over the next couple of weeks and months ahead of week 1 at Clemson, but it's a good problem to have. A lot of versatility, a lot of pieces that can make some make some waves this offseason. And again, a good problem to have.
Do you think Toviano's found his spot at safety?
I think Toviano is going to stay at safety for the foreseeable future. I think that is his bread and butter. He was a really elite level safety in high school. That's what he was recruited as. They moved him around to cornerback, star, and now Brian Kelly's kind of hinted at the fact that he's going to stay at the safety spot, and I think that's where he's going to succeed the most. He's gotten some first team reps here and there. He's built like a safety. He looks the part out there, but continuing to get more fundamentally sound will be where he starts to thrive and piece everything together.
Do you think any freshmen besides Pickett on the defensive side of the ball are just gonna see playing time that you can think of off the top of your head?
It's a good question, and some people might not like this take, but I love this take. I think Zion Williams is a player who could really, really compete for some snaps this season. I'm not saying go out there and be a full-on starter and surpass, let's say, guys like Dominic McKinley, Ahmad Bro, Sadir Mitchell. The Texas transfer has flashed a little bit during camp. But Zion Williams looks the part, man. This guy is like 6'4", 330, 335. I mean, he's physically ready for the SEC. Don't sleep on Zion Williams to get some reps this season. I think that if he continues to evolve as a player and get more fundamentally sound under Kyle Williams, who's coaching them, I mean, who better to coach your trenches, to coach your defensive tackles? I mean, this is a guy who was a Pro Bowler. He played 13 years for the Buffalo Bills, was an All-American during his tenure with LSU. I mean, he has the resume, and now he gets to coach these guys. I think if Zion Williams allows kind of Kyle Williams to put his arm around him and teach him, I think Zion Williams has a chance to be a really special player for LSU, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get some reps in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, Bo Davis was one of the negative parts of the offseason for LSU, like him leaving. But I think Kyle Williams, honestly, I don't know if it's going to be an upgrade because that's kind of saying a lot, but I think he's going to fit in well. I don't really see any issues. I'd rather have a motivated Kyle Williams who wants to be there and all that stuff than a Bo Davis who just kind of, I mean, Bo Davis is in the perfect situation for college, right? I mean, he gets to come back home. He gets to be the highest paid defensive tackle or defensive line coach, whatever you're going to call it, in the nation. And and he just leaves. So I think he's probably tired of recruiting and jumping on planes and NIL and all that other dumb stuff. So I'm curious to see what Kyle Williams can do, and then just kind of hopefully find stability. What's this, like their 7th coach in like 5 years or something crazy? So I think Kyle Williams will be fine. Does he seem pretty active out there? Like he's like, because your D line coach, you want to be like a borderline psychopath. Like I would assume he's like down on the practice field.
Yeah, Bo Davis was obviously a guy who was just tenacious, just in your face, not afraid to yell. Really got into his guys. Kyle Williams, you can see flashes of that. Of course, it's going to take time. He doesn't have Power 4 coaching experience. This is a guy who coached at Ruston High, right up in North Louisiana as the defensive coordinator, and now he's making the jump to LSU. So it's going to take some time to adapt. You can see some intent. You can see some intensity, some fire, but he's more focused, what it looks like, on the tactical and technical pieces of the game. And that's big for this program right now. But as he gets more acclimated to coaching these guys, he's only known them for like maybe 10 days now. So he needs to start to know their personalities a little bit more and who he could lay into a little bit more and whatnot. But nonetheless, Kyle Williams has the chance to be a really key component to this defensive staff as he starts to learn more about the recruiting game and which players, like I said, he can lay into and who he has in that defensive tackle room. But definitely a good hire, one that Brian Kelly and them expect to be around for a couple of years. They were strategic with that, where they expect him to be here for a little bit longer, not a one and done like you've seen in the past. So Kyle Williams is a good hire. Has that Louisiana kind of bloodline, that recruiting realm right there. So we'll see what he can do, but I'm excited to see what ultimately happens in that defensive line room.
Well, he coached high school too, right? And then didn't he have a couple of players from those teams on the team now?
Yeah, so he coached Ahmad Bro, who's currently running as the starting defensive tackle for LSU alongside Dominic McKinley, and he coached him up at Ruston High School for 3, 4, 5 years. So they definitely, there's a relationship there. He's a proven guy who can develop players. I mean, I got to talk to Bro last week, and he was really just talking about he wouldn't be the player he is now if it wasn't for Kyle Williams. So there's been some praise there, and a lot of it from former players and, of course, former teammates, etc. A lot of people believe in Kyle Williams, and it's hard to not get on that train when you hear a bunch of people raving about what he brings to the program.
Yeah, I think he'll be just fine. Isn't there another spring window portal? Or do you think LSU's gonna be active in that or no?
Yeah, so there's another window in April. I believe it's mid to late April, and I would expect them to go out and look for another safety, potentially another linebacker, but mainly safety and an offensive lineman would be where I'm looking for them to start to fill a void there. I think the tackle spot is a spot that's kind of thin. If you want to rotate Josh Thompson to tackle, you can, but his bread and butter might be more on the inside, more of the interior offensive line spot. So in that window, I would fully expect them to get a safety. If they don't get a safety, I would be shocked. You need to
Really?
add some depth and up the talent level there and up the competition. But aside from the safety spot, O-line would be one where I'm looking at them to potentially get a body, and the potential on the other side in the trenches too at defensive line.
Is there any names you're hearing, or is that supposed to be hush hush right now?
Yeah, so I haven't heard any names. That's more hush hush, obviously, with these guys not entering the portal quite yet. But once that window opens, I'd fully expect them to start to make some moves sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I would assume they're going to be pretty aggressive. They've been aggressive throughout this whole thing so far. So, anything else football wise you want to touch on?
No, I mean it's been big really with spring camp. They've been handling business and getting after it. You're starting to see that depth chart start to take shape. On the recruiting side of things, they hosted five-star wide receiver Tristan Keys today, five-star Elijah Haven, the quarterback from right down the road, was in town. And I'm going to butcher this name, but Emmanuel Ahianacho was in town today as well. He's a five-star, number 2 rated offensive tackle in the country. So you had a trio of five stars on campus today, fresh off of a big recruiting weekend where you brought in 4-star quarterback and top 5 quarterback in the country, Bo Bentley, to campus, among several other guys too. I mean, you had double-digit, really priority targets in town. So they're utilizing this spring camp window to their advantage to get some guys to campus. But today, Tuesday, March 18th, they really went after it and got a trio of 5 stars to campus that they're circling as major priorities.
Yeah, that sounds like they're putting like the groundwork, or they've the coaches are starting to finally get their hooks in on recruiting and everything else. So I mean, they had a good class last year, but it's definitely gotten better since Kelly's been here, and then the NIL push and all that other fun stuff. So I think they're this is the best. My opinion, this is the best LSU's been off since 2019. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of aggressiveness, all these reports for LSU basketball men's with NIL. What have you heard, like at LSU men's? I mean, obviously they had a really bad year, but are they going to throw a bunch of money at it, or what's going on?
Yeah, so you're looking at a program that was operating way under the threshold when it comes to how much, from a financial perspective and resources, it takes to build a competing team in the SEC. I mean, bottom 2, they did not have the money that they needed, and I'm hearing probably like 2 million, 2.5 million to build their roster. When you're looking at a lot of other teams that are kind of around that $6 to $8 million range to build the roster, so they were in a spot where they just didn't have the money to get these guys to campus. So ultimately, what it comes down to is upping the ante on the financial front, upping the resources for Matt McMahon, and you have seen reports that are obviously true, and you're seeing a lot of On3 reports that are saying that LSU's upping the ante on the financial front, upping the resources so that Matt McMahon can go out and assemble a really competitive team for the 2025-2026 season. So it's big time. You have to go out and crush this transfer portal window. He's done really a fine job on the high school recruiting ranks, but you got to go out and get some proven guys as well. And that's where the transfer portal window in the next couple of weeks becomes super important. Financially, it seems like they're getting their money together to be able to throw bags of cash at players to get them to Baton Rouge. So we'll see what ultimately happens. I'll believe it when I see it. It's a
Yeah.
challenge in this day and age. I think you have 2 steps here. Step 1 is to retain the talent that you have from this true freshman class in Curtis Givens, Victorious Miller, Robert Miller, etc. Those guys have been sensational as true freshmen. It's going to be really hard to hold on to Victorious Miller. I wouldn't be surprised to see something happen there. Corey Chest, a redshirt freshman, there's definitely been some rumblings that he might not return either. So you have to retain these players that you have for phase 1, and then phase 2 is go out and just crush the recruiting and crush the transfer portal to get these guys to Baton Rouge so that you can compete.
Yeah, I kind of see this as I kind of view all this stuff as, yeah, they'll up the ante. I'm not gonna like say they're not, but I think a lot of these schools kind of have to pick and choose where they put their NIL money. Obviously, LSU football is going to be one, and then LSU baseball is probably up there too.
Women's basketball.
Women's basketball, that's been, between Angel Reese, Johnson, all these other girls getting money. Yeah, you can only put so much money towards certain things, but I could see LSU maybe just getting like two big impact transfers and then just kind of filling out among the fringes, in my opinion. But what the hell do I know? That's just my prediction. So
I think you got to
sticking
go
on.
and get like 5 guys, Mike. Like it's going to be this roster is going to be in some shape once the portal window opens. I think you're going to see some guys leave, and you're going to have to fill the void there. You're also losing 3, 4, 5 seniors. It's an overhaul once again. Like this is going to get really interesting for Matt McMahon. I'm really intrigued to see how he navigates this whole process, because you got 3, maybe 4, I think it's 3, 2025 signees that put pen to paper in December or November. And now it's about going out and filling out the rest of the roster. I think it's going to be a much bigger overhaul than a lot of people realize, just because you're going to see some guys leave this program and you're going to have to fill those voids quickly.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's gonna be played out, but yeah, like I said, I think you can only put so much money into it, or I mean, unless
And
you
you're
get
right.
yeah.
That's the thing. Like that's where your point is completely valid, because okay, let's say you have a pool of this amount of money and this top tier guy is asking for this amount and another top tier guy is asking for this amount. Do you just give them your entire fund, or do you try to spread it out to go get some middle of the pack guys? So it gets interesting. If you have 2 top tier guys and you have enough money to pay both of them, what do you do with the rest of the roster is the best way to describe that. So, I mean, it's a spot on perspective, and that's where it gets interesting for McMahon and company moving forward.
Yeah, and I don't really see like any like top-notch donors coming for LSU basketball. I don't know if there is or not, but
Yeah.
yeah. But all right, I know you got to go in a minute. You want to touch on women's basketball real quick?
Yeah, I think first of all, they got absolutely hosed with the 9:15 game on a Saturday night. It's ridiculous to have to do that for the team, but nonetheless, you have a pretty favorable draw moving forward. If all things go accordingly, obviously a Sweet 16 is within reach, but handle business. Allow the point guard play to continue developing. Get some play from your bigs, Samaya Smith, Jersey Wolfenbarger. Allow them to really compete in the best way. Anissa Morrow can't do it all in the post by herself. So got to get some play from Samaya, got to get some play from Jersey. And we know that big 3 of Michaela Williams, Flauge, and Anissa, we know that they're going to put on for the team and combine for 85% of the points. But you got to get some contributions from your depth pieces, your bench, etc. If you can get that, I don't see a reason why this team doesn't punch their ticket to the Sweet 16 next Monday.
Nice. You see them going far?
We'll see what happens with the rest of the region. I think they can get out of Baton Rouge and punch a ticket to the Sweet 16. But from there, once I see that bracket, then we can talk a little bit more about an Elite 8 appearance. But get to the Sweet 16 first and see what happens from there.
Yeah, just take one game at a time.
Yeah, that's the best thing you can do with this team. They don't have kind of these rosters that they've had in the past. It's taking it one game at a time. We'll see what they ultimately do.
Yeah, you never know. The right team catches hot,
Absolutely. It's March, baby. It's big time.
Yeah, you filling out a bracket this year or no? I think I'm gonna take it a year off.
At least one. I got to do at least one. All these challenges and stuff, I can't join all of them. I don't want to do that this year, but I'll do at least one.
Yeah, I feel that. All right. Anything else you want to touch on?
No, that's it. We crushed it. That's everything.
All right, cool. All right. If you guys can like and subscribe, appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.